Let's dive into the nitty-gritty.
Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse was released on December 1st, 2018 at the Regency Village Theater in Los Angeles, which I guess that's just the premiere, and then was released wide in the U.S. on December 14th, 2018. Had a budget of $90 million, which is pretty steep for an animated film like this. That I don't think there were any expectations about. I feel like this was kind of like, it flew under the radar because I didn't even know what it was when it came out. And then when I watched it, I was like, holy shit, this is amazing. How did this get made by Sony? But box office, it made $384.3 million. Spoilers for when we eventually talk about Beyond the Spider-Verse, Across the Spider-Verse made like $800 million or something like that. So we can't count it as a Nic Cage movie because he doesn't speak in the movie. He does sort of kind of show up, but we can't count it. The character shows up just in the background in a couple scenes. Spoilers. But yeah, that's a lot of money for a like I said, like a animated film that kind of flew under the radar. I don't think there were any expectations of what a Miles Morales starring Spider-Man animated film was going to do, but I don't think anybody expected it to make $400 million. I'm really hoping that, because they teased Aaron Morales in, I think it was the first of the Homecoming. Yep. So I'm hoping that they eventually like transition to Miles Morales' story with Tom Holland, because he apparently exists in that universe because Aaron Morales exists. So, and he says like, my nephew lives around here in one scene. So hopefully that also means that Donald Glover would play the Prowler eventually, which would be amazing. Yeah. This was directed by 3 directors. First time we've ever had that happen. That's, I mean, you know, it's a huge undertaking. This film is like, there's so much going on visually and with the performances and everything in between. It's a gorgeous, gorgeous film all the way through. But it was directed by, we'll start with Bob Paraschetti, who started as a storyboard artist for Shrek 2, worked on Wallace and Gromit, Curse of the Were-Rabbit, which I feel is like the 4th time that we've talked about Curse of the Were-Rabbit on this show. Did the storyboards for Monsters vs. Aliens before becoming the head writer, and I believe, I don't know if he actually directed, but he was on Puss in Boots, the original one, the 2011 one, and The Little Prince. All 3 of our directors, of course, ended up going on to win an Academy Award for this film. Also won a BAFTA, Critics' Choice, and a Golden Globe, which is pretty amazing. I don't know what they were up against, but I still feel like they would have crushed pretty much any competition with this film. Our second director, Peter Ramsey, started in the 80s as a storyboard artist, noticing a theme, working on Predator 2. Then he ended up working on Independence Day, Men in Black, worked on both Being John Malkovich and Adaptation as a storyboard artist. And then Fight Club, Castaway, you get the idea. He's got an extremely successful track record of working as a storyboard artist, but then went on to direct Rise of the Guardians, which did not do well, but also directed a few episodes of The Mandalorian and Ahsoka. And then our third director was Rodney Rothman, who was a longtime writer for David Letterman. Ended up producing a handful of Judd Apatow films and was the co-writer for 22 Jump Street. I don't know how it worked behind the scenes, having 3 different directors. I mean, I'm assuming it was storyboard, visuals, and then there was, the actors' performances and maybe a little bit of a mix. It seems like the writers were also very involved in the directing of the cast and stuff. So the writing team is Phil Lord and Christopher Miller, though Phil Lord is the only one who's actually credited. But they both appeared behind the scenes and they both talked about putting the film together. And I think Phil Lord was the only one who won an Oscar out of the two. But they are a team, and they've worked on a ton of things together. Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, the Lego Movie, which they crushed, and then 21 and 22 Jump Street. And at least Phil Lord won an Oscar for this film, for Best Animated Feature Film, which I think that they're both credited in the actual credits of the film, but I think on IMDb it's only given to Phil Lord, so I don't know why. It's, maybe it's something like how the Coen brothers were like not actually able to say that they both directed it for the longest time. So I think Ethan got the directing credit on every film, or Joel. I think Joel got the directing credit, but they both directed everything together for their whole careers. So I don't know how that works. I think it's like you have to hit certain rules in order to qualify for the Oscars, so maybe they had to say that only one of them was like the head writer or something like that. I don't know. Edited by Robert Fisher Jr., who also edited Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs 1 and 2. The Smurfs, A Christmas Carol. That's a movie, apparently, is the Smurfs Christmas Carol. But he did not work on Across the Spider-Verse, which is surprising. I figured they would have kept this team completely the same. And I do notice that movie is not quite as, smooth as this one. Like, this one is like pretty much perfect. But Across the Spider-Verse, spoilers, is a cliffhanger. And I think that kind of detracts from it.
Yeah.
It sounds like 2027 is like the projected date for it. Yeah, I don't know why they didn't like just try to do the films together, like so they could release them like a year apart or something like that.
Maybe Lord and Miller are busy.
Yeah, maybe
it's probably like I don't know.
23 Jump Street.
Who knows? Maybe, but I'm guessing a lot hinges on them and their availability. And after the first one, they were able to negotiate whatever the hell they wanted. Out of making 2 sequels.
Music by Daniel Pemberton, who has 5 Golden Globe nominations and an Oscar nomination, who has kind of become the go-to composer for Guy Ritchie, Danny Boyle, Ridley Scott, Aaron Sorkin, worked on films like Steve Jobs, Ocean's 8, The Trial of the Chicago 7, which I haven't seen, but I believe that was the one he got an Oscar nomination for, etc. Kind of like a composer for hire, but kind of a go-to for those guys I just mentioned. Like they just keep going back to him. Music is amazing throughout. I love the little like the sound design on like when the Prowler shows up and stuff is really cool. There's all sorts of those little things where it's just like, yeah, it's beautifully done. Ratings. This is has since gone up since we first talked about this. We talked about this, I believe, on Pig or something like that. We talked about all of the 90% in Nicolas Cage's career. This one has since gone up over time to 97%, which is incredible. That's 8.4 out of 10 on 66 reviews. I don't know the math, but I would say that means like 65 of the 66 gave it a 6 or above. 64 out of 66. Yeah, pretty amazing. That's definitely the highest movie that we've talked about. Because we talked about Red Rock West had since gone up to like a 96, but now Into the Spider-Verse has also gone up, so to a 97. It seems like usually films go the opposite direction over time. Like they find reviews where they're like more critical of it. Audience score on this is almost exactly the same, 94%, which I think is the highest audience score we have ever had on this show. That's incredible. Metacritic 87%, which I think might be the highest Metacritic score we've ever had. Yeah, that's way higher than, it's always like 69, 70 something for a good movie, but this one 87%. I think that's far and away the highest Metacritic score we've ever had. IMDb 8.4%, so it's exactly the same, aligned with the Rotten Tomatoes critic score. Mm-hmm. And then the cinema score was an A+, which is as good as you can do. Unlike Megapolis and Joker 2.
Has anything we've reviewed had an A+? Anything else?
I feel like there was something in there. I know we've had a few A's and a few A minuses, but I don't know. Maybe not. That's pretty damn good. Yeah, eventually I'll go back and kind of like go through all of these things and find what's highest rated and all that kind of stuff. But that might be like a recap show that we do at some point. We probably should do one for our 50th episode, but I ain't got that kind of time.